May 18th, 2013. Here's my 2 cents on Star Trek Into Darkness. Just saw it last night. If you're listening to this on the YouTube channel, you can click the link and read Joseph McCarthy's Star Trek Into Darkness movie review. He saw it a few weeks ago because they pre-screen it in Europe, and he's from Europe. It's a funny review that he writes because it's just awesome, and there's all kinds of action-packed, and he's like kind of like a fanboy kind of review. So if you're like a lover of Star Trek, read his review because he's kind of like, he builds up to your alley. I'm a person that I never watched Star Trek as a kid, so I have a different perspective, but I love the audience that I went with last night. I went with a lady who's been watching Star Trek since she was a little girl in the 60s, so she loves Star Trek, so she has that perspective. I went with somebody who never even knew what Star Trek was. She only knew about Star Trek from the Big Bang Theory, so wanted to watch it. So we just watched together. We watched the original, like the J.J. Abrams original movie yesterday, and then sort of the day before, and then yesterday we saw the sequel to it. So in a span of less than 24 hours, she knew nothing about Star Trek and watched the first two films. And I guess I'm sort of in between, where I come from a world and doing this site and things like that. So everybody is generally a big Star Trek fan about the rhetoric, the kind of religious aspect, the socialism. All I gotta say is that this is the fourth film in a row in the summer 2013 movie season of when a movie's in 3D. So it started with Oblivion, then it went into Iron Man 3, and then it went into Great Gatsby, and now Star Trek Into Darkness, the fourth movie in a row in 3D. And I have to say, I was somewhat of a fan of all those three other films, but there's something about Star Trek, and someone else pointed this out to me. It's like when you watch the films, like I just watched the first films, Abrams' film, and then this film. The film's got soul to it, and it's got like heart. There's a lot of heart to these films, where sometimes you make these action films, especially, and they kind of lack a little emotion. They want to make you laugh, they want to make you cry a little bit, but they don't really succeed like the Star Trek did. And I want people to do people a favor. Watch The Avengers, and then watch the biggest movie of last year, then watch Star Trek Into Darkness. Star Trek Into Darkness has a lot more heart to it, a lot more soul to it. There's a lot more feeling, so the action is compounded even more. It's a lot more fun. So we know that Spock and Kirk aren't going to die, but when they have do or die situations, we feel that emotion even more in the action scenes, where the other films, even the Avengers film, for example, where it's like you just knew it was kind of corny and you weren't really ungrounded. So I guess the best way I could describe it is that Star Trek is a fantasy sci-fi film that's grounded in emotion, and that's how Abrams succeeds from the Gene Roddenberry's original Star Trek. Yeah, it's a lot different, but he remains the heart and soul of what Star Trek is intact, and I can argue that to the cows come home. This is a film with non-stop action. It's like every 5 minutes there's like, it gets worse and worse and worse, it gets a little bit better, it gets worse and worse and worse. It's like Hitchcock thriller with an action kind of point of view, meaning that it just doesn't stop, like over and over again. But at its heart, it's basically a movie about loyalty is the most important trait anybody can have, and this is what Spock is learning about. Loyalty over anything else. Rules don't matter. The rules don't exist when friendship is involved. And of course, this is just a continuation of Spock and Kirk's friendship. It's about heart. It's about loyalty. It's kind of funny because Peter Weller is I guess the certain villain of course the Khan is the original villain, but Peter Weller's character is somewhat of a villain in this episode. So I'm watching 24 of all things, season 5 of 24, while like I'm in the middle of it, while I'm watching while I went to watch the Star Trek Into Darkness, and Peter Weller's character is the same character that he plays from 24 season 5, where he's a higher up government official. He basically goes rogue a little bit because he thinks that things for the higher good of mankind or Earth in general needs to be done, and people. It's not about the cookie cutter New York Times op-ed pieces. It's about real life, and you have to sacrifice all these things for the greater good. And it's about the lack of morals, when someone loses their morals along the way, where Kirk and Spock have to keep their morals intact in order to do for the greater good. So basically, both of these characters are willing to die for the greater good because they know that this is what life is all about. Where the Peter Weller character is kind of like stuck in his little mind about like it's about it's about basically taking over things as much as possible, and Earth needs to be number one, blah blah blah. So they're basically playing he's playing exactly the same role he played in 24 season 5. Just a little funny tidbit. One little extra add-on. Kirk, it's so funny watching these two films back to back. Kirk as a ladies' man, hey, these are very exceptional writers. They talk in the nerd speak and they talk in this language that we don't understand. The way they do Kirk as a ladies' man is kind of laughable. I'm not saying I'm a ladies' man, but basically the art of being a womanizer, or basically someone who women like a lot, is not saying, hey, I'm James Kirk, how you doing? Basically, it's about being suave. It's about being cool. The less you say, the better. So basically, if the writers are listening to this, you're not ladies' men. I know you're nerds, but basically find a ladies' man or find somebody who's like charming and suave. Even ask the actor Chris Pine in general, who's kind of a pretty boy. Ask him what a ladies' man is and basically rewrite it. Less is more. So basically, it almost takes you out of the film from someone who basically understands the opposite sex or whatever you want to call it. It almost takes you out of film because it's so laughable, but all the rest of their stuff is so like cool for what they do. So it's almost kind of like a nerd writing kind of a charming character. It's like a nerd writing, you know what I mean, like a James Bond character. Just find somebody who can write those scenes for you. That's my review.